from Audit the Audit's channel. I'm sure if you're not familiar with Audit the Audit, like this was one of the channels I watched before I actually got into, before I actually went out there and started exercising my rights, like intentionally. I don't even like to say I'm auditing. Really, I'm just exercising my rights intentionally.
Welcome to Audit the Audit, where we sort out the who and what and the right and wrong of police interactions. This episode covers true threats, fighting words, and resisting, and is brought to us by California Body Cam's channel. Be sure to check out the description below and give them the credit that they deserve. Channels like California Body Cam are a valuable resource to the public and deserve recognition, so be sure to check out his channel for the unedited footage. Before we dive into the interaction, I want to give a big thanks to the sponsor of this episode, Rocket Money. 15th, 2023, Patrolwoman Clements of the Logan Township Police Department pulled over a man just outside his place of employment in Logan Township, New Jersey. While she was conducting the stop, another employee, who we will refer to as Mr. Coworker, walked over and began to speak to her. The interaction that followed was recorded on the body cameras of the various officers involved.
Hello. How are you? Hello, I'm Officer Clements. Looking out to this department. Do you have your license, registration, insurance?
My license number, I thought I brought my
license.
I got my license.
That's no problem.
What's that? Stop for?
So that plate cover on the back? So you can have it.
My bad, y'all. I got the. They're talking a little fast.
Hello, I'm Officer Clements. Looking out to this department. Do you have your license, registration, insurance?
What?
My license number, I thought I
Nah,
brought
that's
my
just
license.
how she.
I got my license number.
That's no problem.
What's that? Stop for?
So that plate cover on the back? So you can have a tinted plate cover. The frame is fine, but the plate, it makes it difficult for the plate to see, so that is not allowed.
She pulling over for a tenant
Hello?
plate cover.
I'm sorry, I'm going to stop.
Plate cover.
I want to stop. Yeah, I understand that. That's fine, but I want to stop. If you could just go back over there, please. 25 cars, but somebody else lied out here. You know who this guy is?
Yeah, I know you.
What's his name?
She got to give him.
You don't know his name?
I can't. I mean,
What's his name?
Yeah, some dude just walked up to my stop
Oh,
and told me that he's going to beat me up.
Patrolwoman Clements radios for backup, claiming that Mr. Coworker told her that he was going to beat her up. While the body camera did not capture all of Mr. Coworker's speech, the last two words he said clearly seemed to be, and I'm quoting, effed up. And Patrolwoman Clements later stated that Mr. Coworker told her he was going to, quote-unquote, F her up. Although the First Amendment ordinarily prohibits states from criminalizing speech, as the Supreme Court explained in the 2003 case of Virginia versus Black, quote, the protections afforded by the First Amendment are not absolute, and we have long recognized that the government may regulate certain categories of expression consistent with the Constitution. One of these categories is true threats, which the court defined in the Black case as encompassing, quote, those statements where the speaker means to communicate a serious expression of an intent to commit an act of unlawful violence to a particular individual or group of individuals. The court also recognized that, quote, intimidation in the constitutionally prescribable sense of the word is a type of true threat, where a speaker directs a threat to a person or group of persons with the intent of placing the victim in fear of bodily harm or death. Under Section 2C 12-3 of the New Jersey statutes, which defines the crime of terroristic threats, quote, a person is guilty of a crime of the third degree if he threatens to commit any crime of violence with the purpose to terrorize another, or in reckless disregard of the risk of causing such terror or inconvenience. According to the jury instructions for this statute, quote, the words or actions of the defendant must be of such a nature as to convey menace or fear of a crime of violence to the ordinary person. It is not a violation of this statute if the threat expresses fleeting anger or was made merely to alarm. Similarly, Section 2C 33-4 of the New Jersey statutes, which codifies the offense of harassment, states that, quote, a person commits a petty disorderly person's offense if, with purpose to harass another, he subjects another to striking, kicking, shoving, or other offensive touching, or threatens to do so. Depending on the exact words that Mr. Coworker spoke, it is possible that he could be convicted of either of these offenses if he actually threatened to cause physical harm to Patrolwoman Clements, and his words could be considered a so-called true threat, or another category of unprotected.
So this is why.
Personal.
Hold on, y'all.
And now, so is treating it. Introducing Hard Mints, wintergreen.
Oh, man.
Good speech.
So this was why I like this channel so much, Audit, because you learned a lot. They teach a lot on this, on this channel, and it's not. I don't think it's biased, but of course everything has some type of bias. But anyway, so basically what he's saying is that if they want to really press it, they probably could find some, even though he really didn't do anything, they could try to make it seem like he did something, which is why you got to be careful when you're out there doing like he was actually doing the audit. He was holding his government accountable, seeing what's going on in his community, and actually outside his job with somebody who works at his job. He said, well, what's going on? What are you pulling them over for? Because he probably knows that this guy was just a family man who worked hard and was going home to his family, not trying to hurt nobody or do anything to anyone. So he wanted to say, well, why are you pulling him over? What's going on? Make sure that he's not being profiled and harassed like it seems like she's doing right now, because she pulled him over and is doing all this because he has a tinted plate cover, which I guess is against the law, but I mean, come on.
You don't have your insurance?
Yeah, Kelly.
All right, that's no problem.
44, just to clarify, this is a pedestrian that walked up on your stop. Can you give a brief
I don't know if
description,
it's
please?
against the law. It's
Yeah, the black male. He works at
against
Lineage.
the
About
statute.
35, red pants, navy blue hoodie, orange traffic vest. All right, listen. Let me check on this.
My registration is just running into because
Yeah, I'll check on this, and when I come back, if you have your insurance, no problem. Thank you. Sir, you need to go back inside. Yeah, you need to go back inside.
She thinks he needs to go back inside, or she's trying to tell him to go back inside when he doesn't have to go nowhere. He is more than 10 feet away, obviously. He is not walking up on her, obviously. He is in the area. Yeah, sure.
Let's go. I want to stop.
44, check-in.
I'm okay. The driver's being cooperative. I attached him, but this now is kind of just lingering, yelling at me.
All right, copy.
44 will be coming up on you in a second here. This guy look like again.
Black male, red pants, navy blue hoodie, orange traffic vest. He is inside the gates at Lineage. There's a few more people.
And you know, she makes it clear that he's a black male, and they're gonna respond accordingly.
Oh, a person now. You guys are good. Good morning. I'm sorry. Could you go back over there? I want to stop. It'll be 2 seconds.
I just can't. I'm the supervisor. I just can't see. He works here. That's
Yeah, I understand. I'll be clear with him in 2 seconds.
And then I'm just asking you, is everything
Yeah,
all right?
everything's fine, and I'll be clear in 2 seconds.
Turned up.
Can I ask you what he stopped for?
Yeah, he was stopped for the plate cover.
That's it.
Alrighty.
I want to ask you.
All right.
No, I don't have a problem.
Look how you pull it.
Patrolman Andy Kalishian arrives on the scene and approaches Mr. Coworker and his
Y'all
supervisor.
see how you pulled up? Look.
Patrolman Andy Kalishian arrives on the scene and approaches Mr. Coworker and his supervisor.
Turned up on
I'm
team.
on the supervisor. I just came to check on my employee. That's it.
Yeah, this, first off,
Explain.
first off, man, I did walk up and
No, I didn't walk. She wasn't
Look,
talking to me.
turned
She
up on
called me.
team.
yeah, what's your deal, man?
You understand?
Yeah, but you don't need to be flapping your gums at us.
I got you. I live here. I got you. I'm gonna speak to him.
No, now you're under arrest. Now you're under arrest. No, now you're under arrest. Turn around. Turn around. Turn around.
Don't touch me. Don't resist,
Okay.
bro.
Now you're
Y'all see how much time it took for him
I
to
did
get
walk up
out the
and-
car?
I just came to check.
doesn't
Kalishian
know
arrives on the
anything
scene and
that's
approaches
going
Mr.
on.
Coworker and his supervisor.
I'm on the supervisor. I just came to check on my employee. That's it.
Yeah, first off,
Explain.
first off, man, I did walk up and
No, I didn't walk. She wasn't talking about me. She called me.
yeah, what's your deal, man?
You understand?
Yeah, but you don't need to be flapping your gums at us.
I got you. I live here. I got you. I'm gonna speak to him.
No, now you're under arrest. Now you're under arrest. No, now you're.
He said, what's your deal? Talk to him. Ask him a question. He go to expressing himself from being asked a question, because he didn't say anything before he started asking him the question. And he says, you know, exercises his right to free speech. Now he's trying to arrest, well, he arrests him.
Under arrest. Turn around.
Less
Turn
than
around.
a minute.
Turn around.
Don't touch me.
Turn around.
Don't
Less
resist,
than
bro.
a minute.
Bro, they can't lock me up. I'm doing
on.
Listen to me, bro. Listen to me.
Put this hand behind your
Make
back.
it personal.
Are you going to put him as tight as you can?
I'm not
Like I
going
explained
to.
to you, sir, you're under arrest for disorderly
What-
conduct.
what's the
Why are
problem
you
with that?
arresting me at work, bro?
I ain't break no rules.
No, dog, get off me. Stop bringing my arm. Get my boss, yo. Yo, get that. Bro,
relax, all right?
bro, that's too tight.
All right, we will loosen it up, okay? You relax.
Bro, I just lost my daughter. You hear me?
Okay. All right, okay. That's fine.
Bro, that's
Just came back today from
All right, we will figure this out, okay? Dude, I'm sorry for your loss, right? But relax,
Oh, yeah, I
okay?
saw that.
We're just
I
going to
saw
roll you
that
over
band.
and let you catch your breath, all right?
I know her.
roll over.
Once we get you up, we'll loosen your cuffs.
Yeah. What's your name?
I'll give you my name, bro. Came up on me.
So I asked you why you were flapping your gums at us. Your response to me, your response to me was suck my.
Hey, you talking
With your
about why I'm
boss out
flapping
here.
my gums?
So now you're
I'm
under arrest.
tackling my coworker.
Well, now you're under arrest for using the words you have to use in front of everybody.
I want to talk to my boss.
No.
Yo.
You're under
It's not
arrest
worth
for
it,
the
man.
words
It's
you
not
use
worth
in
it.
front
I'm
of
trying to
everybody.
relax. My phone not even on me. That's
It's
what I'm
not
trying
worth
to tell
it.
y'all.
Relax. Relax, bud.
Hell, let me go.
I feel like
You know I just lost my daughter, bro. They arrested me for nothing.
man just lost. The man been through. He going through PTSD, grieving.
I did 11 years on parole. They keep doing to me.
Ain't you solve anything.
Peyton, is this who approached you?
Imagine his mindset towards police after.
AG1 is so much more than a greens powder. In one single scoop, it delivers daily multivitamin.
Yeah, so his response to me, when I asked why he's flapping his gums to me while I was talking to your security officer, was suck my. Now he's under arrest for disorderly. You're not going to use that language. You got employees out over there. I was speaking to him as well. Not having that. So
they can make him.
Patrolman Kalishian explains that he arrested Mr. Coworker for disorderly conduct due to the words he chose to use to express his dissent. Under Section 2C 33-2 of the New Jersey statutes, quote, a person is guilty of a petty disorderly persons offense if, in a public place and with purpose to offend the sensibilities of a hearer or in reckless disregard of the probability of so doing, he addresses unreasonably loud and offensively coarse or abusive language, given the circumstances of the person present and the setting of the utterance, to any person present. The statute defines the word public as including, quote-unquote, places of business. So it is probable that a court would conclude that the encounter occurred in a public place. Nonetheless, it does not seem likely that a court would find that Mr. Coworker's speech was quote-unquote unreasonably loud, as he spoke at a normal volume and was outdoors. Further, even if Mr. Coworker's speech fit the requirements of the disorderly conduct statute, a New Jersey court would almost certainly conclude that it was protected by the First Amendment. In the 1971 case of Cohen versus California, the Supreme Court overturned a citizen's conviction for wearing a jacket emblazoned with a profanity, holding that, quote, the state may not, consistently with the First and 14th Amendments, make the simple public display here involved of this single four-letter expletive a criminal offense. However, it is important to note that the court clarified that this use of profanity did not rise to the level of so-called fighting words, defined as, quote, those personally abusive epithets which, when addressed to the ordinary citizen, are, as a matter of common knowledge, inherently likely to provoke violent reaction, and emphasized that, now quoting again, while the four-letter word displayed by Cohen in relation to the draft is not uncommonly employed in a personally provocative fashion, in this instance, it was clearly not directed to the person of the hearer, and that, now quoting again, no individual actually or likely to be present could reasonably have regarded the words as a direct personal insult. Additionally, in the 1987 case of Houston versus Hill, the Supreme Court recognized that, quote, the First Amendment protects a significant amount of verbal criticism and challenge directed at police officers, and that, now quoting again, the freedom of individuals verbally to oppose or challenge police action without thereby risking arrest is one of the principal characteristics by which we distinguish a free nation from a police state. Nonetheless, the court also noted that, quote, the freedom verbally to challenge police action is not without limits, of course. We have recognized that fighting words are not constitutionally protected. Accordingly, some jurisdictions have concluded that profane insults directed at police officers are fighting words and therefore can be criminally punished. For instance, in the 2018 case of State versus Hale, the 6th District Court of Appeals of Ohio upheld an individual's disorderly conduct conviction for directing several obscene remarks, including the same phrase that Mr. Coworker used here, at a police officer, concluding that they were fighting words that, quote, would reasonably incite the average person to retaliate. However, in the 2003 case...
Wow. So, again, this is why I like this channel, and we can learn things. And people asking me why I'm so calm is because you got to be smart when you're doing this if you want to continue to do it. And really, you got to be smart if you just want to have your freedom, because look at this. You know, say you get to, you know, you conducting your business in a public space or a public building, and you know, you feel like you've been harassed or whatever, and or disrespected, and you get to using certain language, and you know, now you're thinking, you know, okay, I'm good, this and that, you know, this is we well within my First Amendment right, all that, I'm going to do this and that. And then you get to a court where the judge has all the power and they're corrupt as well. So they're going to say, well, we're going to hold it up. And boom, we can show you this case where it got held up because of what up. Basically, my point is, if they really want to and ruin your life or just make it a hassle for you, they can so you want to be smart when you're out there.
Of Johnson versus Campbell, the Third Circuit Court of Appeals, which has jurisdiction over New Jersey, held that, quote, swear words spoken to a police officer do not provide probable cause for an arrest for disorderly conduct because the words, as a matter of law, are not fighting words. Relying on this case, the U.S. District Court for the District of New Jersey determined in the 2022 case of Morales versus Maxwell that an individual could not be convicted of disorderly conduct under this statute for directing a profane insult at a police officer. Therefore, a court in New Jersey would likely conclude that Mr. Coworker could not be arrested simply for the remark he directed at Patrolman Kalishian, although a different jurisdiction may reach the opposite conclusion.
He's not going to jail. Actually, he might be down because of
we got terroristic threats on the officer. You can take it all
resisting arrest.
We have it. We have it.
And he just walked away. Obviously when a car stop, don't walk up on us because it makes us nervous. And now he's walking up on her.
Why make you?
Threatening her.
Muted body cam footage.
No living being should ever eat processed food for every single meal of their life.
Sometime where they're so much whatever, get your camera stocked.
And I'm hoping my camera fell off, and I don't even know if it was on. It's on now because I hit it. I saw that it was off when it fell.
Minimum disorderly
Y'all
conduct,
know what's up with
terroristic
that,
threats,
right?
and obstruction. Obstruction.
After Patrolman Kalishian mutes his body camera for a discussion, the officers determined that in addition to charges of terroristic threats and disorderly conduct, the merits of which we discussed earlier in this episode, they will pursue charges of obstruction and resisting against Mr. Coworker. Under Section 2C 29-1 of the New Jersey statutes, which defines the crime of obstruction, quote, a person commits an offense if he purposely obstructs, impairs, or perverts the administration of law, or prevents or attempts to prevent a public servant from lawfully performing an official function by means of flight, intimidation, force, violence, or physical interference or obstacle, or by means of any independently unlawful act. In the 2019 case of State versus Schneeberger, the Appellate Division of the Superior Court of New Jersey upheld an obstruction conviction against an individual who pulled away from officers, flailed her arms, and refused to place her hands behind her back to be handcuffed after an officer informed her she was under arrest. Additionally, in the 2015 case of State versus Reese, the Supreme Court of New Jersey explained that while the term lawfully performing an official function means that the police officer is acting in objective good faith and under color of law in the execution of their duties, quote, a suspect is required to cooperate with the investigating officer even when the legal underpinning of the police-citizen encounter is questionable. And that, now quoting again, once an officer makes his investigatory intentions clear and he is acting under the color of law, the validity of the underlying police action is inconsequential. Accordingly, if a court held that the officers were acting in so-called good faith when placing Mr. Coworker under arrest, it is likely that he could be convicted of obstruction for struggling with the officers as they attempted to arrest him, even if the underlying arrest was determined to be unlawful. As for the resisting charge, Section 2C 29-2 of the New Jersey statute states that, quote, a person is guilty of a disorderly person's offense if he purposely prevents or attempts to prevent a law enforcement officer from effecting an arrest. The statute also specifically states that, quote, it is not a defense to a prosecution that the law enforcement officer was acting unlawfully in making the arrest, provided he was acting under color of his official authority, and provided the law enforcement officer announces his intention to arrest prior to the resistance. Therefore, it is highly...
That right there is crazy. That's crazy. Doesn't matter if they're acting unlawfully. Only if they think they're acting lawfully. This is the qualified immunity.
Probable that a court would conclude that Mr. Coworker could be convicted of resisting, even if it also determined that the arrest was unlawful and the officers were not acting in good faith.
Just came to the car stop and was trying to pull
Do
her
we need
off.
to call his parole officer also?
If he's still on parole, yes. If he's not, he said he did 15 years on, so I'm assuming he's on parole now. When I approached him and told him, now you're under arrest, we was like right here.
Okay. You better now that you got some air going back there?
Mm-hmm. I was just trying to ask you what you was pulling and moving from. I just watched him come off the mud.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, that's really none of your business. A lot of cops get hurt with guys just walking up on them.
I know, but we get hurt from cops too. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get it, man. It's a crazy world we live in.
According to the Logan Township PD crime log, Mr. Coworker was taken to the Salem County Jail for processing, where he was booked on charges of terroristic threats, obstruction of law, resisting arrest, disorderly conduct, and harassment, and held. In summarizing the interaction, the crime log stated that while officers conducted a motor vehicle stop, quote, a pedestrian approached and began interfering with the officers and making threats. As officers addressed the pedestrian for his interference and threats, he began using profanity and continued the threats. While being placed under arrest, the pedestrian resisted and continued with the threats. At this time, no additional information is available about this encounter. Overall, the Logan Township officers, and Patrolman Kalishian in particular, get an F for repeatedly and unnecessarily escalating the situation, exhibiting a hostile and aggressive demeanor, and arresting Mr. Coworker because Patrolman Kalishian did not like his speech, despite the fact that the Third Circuit has clearly ruled that such speech is protected by the First Amendment. Although Mr. Coworker's speech seems to have offended Patrolman Kalishian, it is essential that officers have thick skin when dealing with the public. And, as Supreme Court Justice Lewis Powell noted in his concurring opinion in the 1974 case of Lewis versus City of New Orleans, quote, a properly trained officer may reasonably be expected to exercise a higher degree of restraint than the average citizen, and thus be less likely to respond belligerently to fighting words. In this encounter, I believe that Patrolman Kalishian demonstrated a lower degree of restraint than the average citizen, and it certainly seems that he chose to arrest Mr. Coworker because he injured his ego. Mr. Coworker gets a C, because although I strongly believe he was within his First Amendment rights in his speech towards Patrolman Kalishian, he inserted himself into a police investigation that did not involve him, and likely violated the New Jersey resisting and obstruction statutes during his struggle with the police officers. Although the body camera footage does not show all of the actions that Mr. Coworker took during the arrest, at the very least, he can be seen pulling away from the officers, which, given the low standard of opposition required for resisting and obstructing in New Jersey, would likely be sufficient to sustain a conviction. Now, while I understand that Mr. Coworker's actions were likely in response to the apparent violation of his First Amendment rights, given the fact that many states, including New Jersey, do not recognize a right to resist an unlawful arrest, this encounter demonstrates why citizens typically only hurt themselves when they refuse to comply with an officer's attempts to arrest them. Let us know if there is an interaction or legal topic that you would like us to discuss in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to check out my second channel for even more police interaction content.